Adventurers, and welcome to this deep dive. It's all about Old School RuneScape's newest quest, the Curse of Arraw. We've got dev trivia quest details and even hints about where that whole Majorot storyline is going next.
Yeah, it's like a buffet for anyone who loves the lore. And the thing that really stands out to me is how this quest kind of jumps through time. It pulls from RuneScape's past and weaves it into what's happening in Old School RuneScape right now.
It's true. They had this huge idea for a multi-part quest series called Mysteries of the Majorot back in the day for RuneScape. And it seems like they sprinkled some of that magic into this new quest.
Exactly. Like, think about Missing My Mummy. Some of its key elements are now part of the Curse of Arraw. It gives this feeling that there's a much bigger story happening in the background.
So let's break down this Mysteries of the Majorot idea. Our sources say it was going to be this massive thing with quests like Tale of the Muspa, Missing My Mummy, the Curse of Arraw, and the Temple at Sentencin. But here's the thing, Tale of the Muspa doesn't even exist in Old School RuneScape.
That's where it gets interesting. Instead of just ignoring Tale of the Muspa, they actually took its main ideas and put them into the Secrets of the North quest in Old School RuneScape.
So they're not just copy-pasting from RuneScape, they're actually connecting the stories between the two games. That shows some real dedication to keeping the lore consistent.
For sure. And remember, the Curse of Arraw itself was originally a RuneScape quest from way back in 2009. They're bringing it back to life in Old School RuneScape, but they've made some changes.
Oh yeah, like those skill requirements. I remember spending ages grinding those stats in the original RuneScape quest. But the good news is they've lowered the requirements for ranged strength and thieving. It's way more accessible now. They've also changed up the experience rewards. You're looking at a whopping 40,000 XP reward in mining, thieving, and agility once you finish it.
That's a huge jump from the original, and it gives players a real reason to do this quest, especially if they want to level up those skills.
Definitely a nice little perk.
Yeah.
But there's one change that's got everyone talking to Edged. Access to Zemarigal's fortress. In the original RuneScape quest, you only got limited access, right?
Right. But in Old School RuneScape, finishing the quest gives you full access to the fortress. That's a big deal because it opens up this whole new area to explore with tougher enemies and new loot to get.
And that's a reward that keeps on giving. And speaking of loot, there's this brand new item that's got everyone buzzing, the zombie helmet.
This helmet is interesting. It's focused on crush attacks. So it's going to be really good against enemies that are weak to that type of damage.
Oh, strategic advantage. But it's not just about raw power, right? This helmet has some quirks too.
Yeah, it actually drops broken. You'll need to use your smithing skills to fix it. You need level 70 smithing to get it back in shape.
So it's not just a combat reward. It's a test of your crafting skills too. But once you fixed it, where does it fit in with all the other helmets in Old School RuneScape?
It's like this. You've got your basic Dwarven helmet, good for new players. Then you've got the high-end Inquisitor's Great Helm for the experts. This zombie helmet fits right in the middle, a solid upgrade for players who want an edge in crush-focused combat.
So it's a real upgrade, not just something that looks cool?
Absolutely. But remember, it drops broken, and you need that level 70 smithing to fix it at an anvil. It adds another layer to the reward.
But once it's repaired, can you trade it?
Both the broken and the repaired versions of the helmet are tradable. So yeah, it could definitely shake things up in the market. Smart players could buy broken helmets, fix them, and then sell them on the Grand Exchange for a profit.
Okay, let's recap for our listeners. The Curse of Arraw throws you into a conflict between Zemarigal, a powerful Majorot, and Arraw, a legendary hero. You'll face tough enemies, test your smithing skills, and get access to a potentially game-changing new item, the zombie helmet. But there's a bigger picture here too.
Exactly. This quest isn't just a one-off adventure. It's a key part of the bigger Majorot story in Old School RuneScape. And it's the last remake in the series, paving the way for two brand new quests that will wrap up the Majorot storyline.
It's an ending and a beginning. It celebrates the past and gives us a glimpse into the future, all wrapped up in a thrilling quest with challenging gameplay, rewarding loot, and a fascinating dive into the lore of Gilanor.
Definitely, the Curse of Arraw shows how dedicated the developers are to both honoring RuneScape's history and creating a new path for Old School RuneScape.
Now, before we get too lost in the lore, I want to ask our listeners a question. Given everything we've learned about the zombie helmet, its stats, its focus on crush attacks, and where it fits in with other gear, how do you think it will change the way melee combat works in Old School RuneScape?
Will it be the top choice for crush-heavy setups? Will it shake up how PvP works?
We want to hear your thoughts. Share your theories, your predictions, your wildest guesses about how this new item will change Old School RuneScape. It's wild how one quest can connect to so many different storylines in old school RuneScape.
Right, like we're standing at this crossroads, looking back at all those familiar remade quests, and at the same time getting these glimpses of what's coming next with those 2 new quests.
And what's really interesting is how this whole approach kind of mirrors the Majorat storyline itself. All these separate events and characters slowly coming together for this big conflict. Just like how this quest brings together pieces from all these past stories.
You're right, it's like a meta-narrative, reflecting the main themes of the Majorat saga. Every choice the devs made, every quest they remade, it all shapes this unique storyline in old school RuneScape.
It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books. Every choice leads to a different outcome.
Yeah.
And here the choices are the quests and storylines the devs picked.
Exactly. With the Curse of Arraw, we're putting in one of the last pieces of the puzzle, getting ready for a finale that's different from anything we've seen before.
Yeah.
And it's all just for old school RuneScape.
You know, we always talk about quests as these self-contained stories, but this deep dive is showing us how connected they really are, especially within a big narrative arc like this one.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the main plot points, it's the little details, the connections that make the lore so rich.
Like how they put elements of Missing My Mummy into the Curse of Arraw, even though Missing My Mummy isn't even in old school RuneScape.
It's a clever way to reference the past while still keeping things fresh. It shows they really care about creating a consistent experience. They're not just throwing stuff together randomly, they're carefully building this whole narrative.
It makes you appreciate all the thought that goes into these storylines. It's not just about entertainment, it's about world building, creating this depth and history.
And it gives players a feeling of actually being part of the story, a story that's always changing.
Speaking of changing, we've talked about how the Curse of Arraw wraps up the remakes and gets us ready for new quests. But what about the things that are still unanswered? What mysteries haven't been solved yet?
Well, if you look at the whole Majorat storyline, there are definitely some loose ends. For example, we still don't know what happened to Zumregal or what the Zerosian prophecy really means. And then there's the whole fight between Lucien and his enemies. All of those could be explored in these new quests.
And don't forget about all the other Majorats scattered around Gielinor. Some are hiding, some are plotting, and some are even on the player's side. We don't know what part they'll play in this final chapter.
And here's what's exciting. The devs can actually reimagine these elements specifically for old school RuneScape. They can add new twists, new characters, new motivations, but still stay true to the original story.
It's like taking a classic book and making a new movie adaptation. Staying true to the original but adding their own style.
Exactly. And by doing that, they're giving players a chance to experience this familiar story in a new way.
It's a win-win. Longtime fans get to revisit those classic storylines, and new players get to experience them for the first time, but in a way that's made just for old school RuneScape.
It shows how powerful a good story can be. And it reminds us that even in a game as big as RuneScape, there's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to see.
So is there anything players can do to get ready for these new quests? Any clues we can get from the lore or the gameplay?
Well, the devs said these new quests will be directly connected to the Curse of Arraw and other Majorat quests.
So pay attention to the dialogue, the characters, the environments. Anything that might hint at what's to come.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of just thinking about it. Talk to other players about your theories. Read the fan wikis. Let your imagination run wild. It's all a great way to engage with the lore and get excited for what's next.
It's all part of the fun, right? The mystery, the anticipation, the thrill of discovering a new chapter in this epic story.
Who knows? Maybe some of those fan theories will turn out to be right.
Now that would be something. Imagine predicting a big plot twist or a surprise character. You'd have bragging rights forever.
For sure. Now, if we think about those 2 new quests that are going to finish the Majorat storyline in old school RuneScape, the possibilities are endless.
Don't hold back. Give me some juicy speculation. Where could this story go?
Well, they could really dive into the Zerosian prophecy. That's always been a big part of the Majorat story. It predicts the return of Zaros, this powerful god who used to rule a lot of Gielinor. His comeback would change everything, and the Majorats are right in the middle of it all.
Okay, so we've got this doomsday prophecy, a bunch of Majorat plotting, and players caught in the middle. Sounds like an epic story to me.
It is. Will we just be pawns in this game between gods and Majorat? Or will we have the power to change things and decide Gielinor's fate? And isn't that what makes a story truly great? It makes you curious, sparks your imagination, and leaves you wanting more.
Well said. So to all you adventurers out there as you play the Curse of Arraw, remember to think critically, question everything, and embrace the gray areas. Gielinor's fate is in your hands.
Until next time, may your adventures be full of exciting discoveries and thought-provoking insights.
Happy scaping, everyone.